Yes, the product you see there, Showrunner, a Netflix-like service for fully AI-generated TV shows, is coming and probably will be sued out of existence shortly thereafter. But it's gonna launch at some point, and the idea here is that the content is completely made by AI. It's created by San Francisco startup Fable Studio. The service will have shows created by filmmakers and content creators. So they're gonna make some, but then people can also use AI prompts to generate episodes. They basically say if you like one and you want more, then you can make more if you want. You can make episodes where you edit the dialogue or develop scenes via prompts. And if someone creates an episode that's especially good for one of the original shows, it could be picked up and they could in fact be paid. That's what they're saying. It's described as thousands of Truman shows populated by interactive AI characters, which does not seem to describe in any way the Truman Show. I get that the Truman Show was futuristic, but that's the only overlap I see here. But anyway, you could probably tell from that first ad what they're going for. There was a show that very clearly was inspired by South Park in terms of the art style. There was some stuff that looked like other anime shows. They invoke a lot of shows in their ads about it. They talk about how you could make Ross and Rachel walk past Carrie Bradshaw, who's on her way to interview Logan Roy, who just fired Elf's father's publisher. Now that sounds like a terrible show to me. And also, I don't know how you're gonna be using the images of these real celebrities without crediting them, without paying them. But that seems to be baked into the business model. Look, something like this seems fun, perhaps. I know everyone would like to create a new episode of Seinfeld. Maybe not as many people as would have liked to a couple months ago, but something like that. That said, there are huge legal concerns here. A lot of interest though. They apparently have a wait list of 50,000 people, and we can show you a little bit of what one of these episodes looks like in a moment. But first, Brett, what's your reaction?
I love this because you really have to find out, in a world where AI is growing and getting new abilities, you have to identify what is just a version of what's already out there, and then you have to understand what is completely new. So, that scene you described of the different people interacting with each other, known characters, like that happens in SNL sketches.
Yeah.
So but it still has to be satire. It still has to be parody. The same way I can't just use her name to get eyeballs, like that is someone else's IP. I can't just go out right now and make a Sex and the City 3 on my own without getting sued. But the person suing you still has to choose whether it's in their best interest to sue you or to buy the idea and embrace it for some PR thing. And that dynamic is also at play in the business model of this company itself. It's like, listen, we've all been through the early 2000s where, I mean, I worked at Current TV, where it's like, listen, it's all gonna be user generated. It's gonna be a television network where everybody sends in their stuff and it's all gonna be good. Except if you do that, it's not all gonna be good. It's gonna be YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube is tons of trash, and I don't want to be on the hook for this being good. So on its own, so I have to curate it. So they're doing the curation, but they are also giving you probably a limited version of the tools so that you can just get to work innovating. And then they can say like, all right, well, that cuts out some of my own development budget if I had to hire a bunch of producers to go take pitches and develop ideas and make a bunch of turd sandwiches that don't turn into anything, that just cost me $2 million. Yeah. Instead, you guys go ahead and the best will bubble to the top. It's a really interesting model that I think ultimately will get beaten by people who are good at it. And that's the last bit of the dynamic. When it first starts out, there's people who just figure it out better and faster, and there's less competition at the beginning. So if you can figure out how to do it, these difficult tools, then you have it's a smaller pond that you're competing against. And then as the technology gets more and more accessible, basically the stuff I started on was just Final Cut, and Final Cut was like very difficult to use relative to TikTok now, which is just like, all right, I've got to do that. I'm doing it all on my phone. It's very fast. More people means more competition, means that you have to actually be better to rise to the top of it. That will come with these kinds of AI cartoons. But for now, it's going to be like top people just learning the tools and competing against each other.
And that's fine on a practical level. I do think there are a lot of legal concerns. I mean, what did they train this AI service on? It looks like they fed in TV shows. I have a feeling South Park is going to want some discovery to see what they trained it on. But anyway, let's quickly run a little bit of Exit Valley, one of these shows.
All right, kids. Today we're going to deep dive into our very own backyard, Silicon Valley. We're going to learn about the history of how a little valley became the tech mecca of the world.
Hey, not another documentary about money-hungry tech nerds.
Now, settle down. Contrary to what many of you might think, Silicon Valley wasn't just whipped up by some middle-class white guys in their garages playing with circuit boards.
Wasn't that Steve Jobs?
And Wozniak?
Well, yes, but that's not the whole story.
Yeah, so far I'd say I think that TV is going to be okay because that was not good. But anyway, look, someday there's going to be a tool. You're going to put in a prompt and you're going to get to watch The Fellowship of the Ring, but Frodo is played by Paul Rudd or whatever, and it's going to be awesome. I don't think that we're there yet, and I think that there's a lot of legal and social concerns that we need to pay attention to on the path to that. Quick final thought goes to you, Brett.
Quick final thought is, when you're describing, it feeds other people's work into it and then does some other mechanism and spits out something new. That's the most fascinating thing, because that's what you do, John, as a writer. You've read all the Entmoot stories and the I'm a Klingon stories. And then you just kind of go off and you start writing, but all that stuff goes into your brain, gets processed by some other thing, and you spit it out. Like, we're all kind of a version of AI, and when you get into philosophy, we might just literally be that. But the question is, during the discovery process, if they're like, oh, you're just taking Rick and Morty drawings and spitting them out, and I can trace that, that's the difference.
Yeah, I agree. Look, seems interesting. A lot of people are interested. I'm not sure, based on the sample of the content that we saw, how much sustained interest there will be, but we will see. And obviously the technology will develop and the legal challenges probably will too. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?